Emma Lawson is from the ABC, if you don't mind, the Australian Broadcasting Corporation.
That's correct, and I do mind.
You do mind. We all mind. That's why we have you here, because we love it so much. And you're based in Sydney.
I'm based in Sydney, yes.
What do you do for the ABC?
So I work in a team called the Innovation Lab. So that works at looking at spaces that the ABC either isn't in at the moment and should be, or looking a bit further ahead, 5 years ahead, like where will we need to be in the future.
But they're everywhere, the ABC. We love them.
They're everywhere. They're in the future.
They are in the future.
They're living in the future, literally, because it's the day ahead because of the Southern Hemisphere.
This is very true. Now, speaking of the future,
Yes.
you were talking about videos connected with audio.
Correct.
How video can be used in the right way to boost and help your audio podcast, radio show.
Yeah, and how you can use it to expand your audience. So looking at platforms like TikTok or YouTube and Instagram and strategies you can take to kind of get the best out of them because use their algorithm to be able to find new audiences for your podcast.
Is it a trade-off? I was just speaking to a lovely woman who was saying that the audio can suffer then sometimes because people are putting too much effort on the video and then they start to take for granted that they're on YouTube, so they describe things, and the whole idea of the beauty of the podcast, audio only, has been lost a bit.
I would disagree because one of the podcasts that we did, it's a animal science podcast. It's called What the Duck. Make sure you listen to it. It's fantastic. It's available on YouTube to watch as well. But I was making the video edits and then I would hand it back to the podcast producer and the host, and she would do the final sound design in it as well. So it's about working it together. It's not against each other, working together to be able to make a really fantastic product and be able to get more bites out of your journalism. You spend so long, particularly with narrative journalism, creating these podcasts, how much investigations go into it, so much research, and you're missing out by not putting it on YouTube to be able to get it seen by more audiences.
Because it's hard to get ears nowadays.
Correct.
For these podcasts. There's so much out there. Hey, are there any examples you know of, or any points you would say when video wouldn't work for a podcast and it should be left audio only?
Yeah, I mean, you want to be really selective. That was one of the things I was talking about. Not all podcasts need to become video. But it's not necessarily chat show ones work easily, right? Because you can just film it. But narrative ones can work really well as well. think true crime. You can take a slightly different strategy, but you need to see what is already out there. Is there an audience appetite for it before you dive in? And it's not necessarily something it's young people, so you can only do the young people podcast. That's not true. All age demographics use YouTube.
Yeah, of course.
And you can even look at it's not necessarily they're not young, so we don't want to put them on YouTube. Think about older audiences, but also older presenters that also have a huge popularity on YouTube. So no, I think you can give all of them a go.
And finally, I'm going to say finally 6 more times because I've got loads of things to ask you. But I've seen people who, they have a podcast, they've no visuals to go with it, but put the waveform, put the whole 30-minute thing up on YouTube. Good idea, bad idea?
So one of the tests that we did was with this health podcast, and one of the episodes was on how often should you shower, and that's because Australians are really smelly,
Once
I think,
a
or
month,
something.
I would say, yeah.
Apparently it's a huge topic in Australia, but that was actually an audio only where we had a videogram with it, and that was the highest performing out of the whole pilot. And so if you are going to do it though, you need to be making sure you're optimizing the video or the podcast or whatever it is. You can't just expect to upload your video or podcast and think it's going to, there's so many people, so people are going to discover it. You really need to use YouTube's inbuilt features to be able to let it know what the podcast is about, so it can be fed to the right audiences.
Putting it in the right category, using the right keywords in the description.
Right keywords, title, description. Make sure the thumbnails are really good.
How important is the thumbnail?
It's everything.
Everything.
It's literally everything. I mean, it cannot be an afterthought. Sometimes you'll be I've put all this effort into the podcast, into the video. I'll spend an hour just whipping something together. We've got a template. It should be as important. It's that key on YouTube to be successful, and you need to make sure that it's colourful, really eye-grabbing, but you don't want to overthink it as well. You need to keep it simple because is that your YouTube?
Yeah.
Oh my God! Yeah.
How often should you shower?
Smelling yourself, you're stinky. No, it needs to just be really clear text. And, it doesn't, yes, emotive faces work, but at the same time, we found with our testing, YouTube audience didn't know how podcast hosts were, so it actually didn't pay off having them on the thumbnail, and instead using more of a topic-based approach for the thumbnail, that worked better. So for the showering one, it had a picture of a shower and soap, and that paid off better than any kind of faces did.
Wow. Well, I'm going to listen to What the Duck
Correct.
while I'm in the shower,
Yes.
thanks to you. ABC Public Service Broadcasting at its
That's
best.
it. That's it.
Hey, it was great talking to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.